Hi friends, it's Unicorn, and today is my long overdue North Korea reading recap for the event I'm hosting called From and About Asia Reading Project. But before we start, I have some news to share. I have recently renovated the web page of this reading project on my blog. I added the reading resource for the current month, September 2021, which is Myanmar, formerly called Burma, on the blog. From now on, I'll be adding reading resources to each of the country we're reading from before the month start, and also it will be serve as a record of how our discussion goes and also what books our members are reading, and also the documentaries and films and culture facts that we learned. So do check out the event page using the link down below, and also join our Discord server for more in-depth discussion if you're interested. The Discord invite link will also link down below. In May, which is 4 months ago, we read books about North Korea and Eastern Asian cultures. So I'll talk about the books that I read for North Korea in that month in this video, as well as a documentary I watched. And in the end, I want to discuss a question that brought up a lot when reading about North Korea. The first book I want to talk about here is a book that I enjoyed thoroughly from the first page to the last, and I kept recommending it to all of my friends during my reading, but I stopped doing that after I found out something about the author at the end of May. And the book I'm talking about is called Dear Leader by Jang Jin-sung. This is a book that's talking about the author's experiences as a North Korea defector. But different from other stories that we read about North Korean defectors, this author actually had a privileged life working as a high-class officer in the literary department poetry office in the North Korean party. And he's a North Korea poet laureate, and his job was to produce propaganda literature materials to North Korean people, but something happened one day and he had to flee from the country. The book shows us a unique perspective, and it was interesting and engaging the whole time. But if you notice, I didn't really show the picture of the book here or hold the book up, because at the end of May, I discovered that the author was accusing of raping 2 women in South Korea, including one other North Korean defector. The lawsuit has been filed against him in February this year and is ongoing in court. So as much as I love reading this book, I feel weird of recommending it to people now, knowing that my recommendation may give the author some small amount of financial support if people decided to buy the book from him. So I just want to show you my whole thoughts and reflections about this book, and also let you know the author is currently under investigation of raping cases in South Korea. So if you want to read this book, maybe take that into consideration, and maybe acquiring this book from the ways that don't financially support the author. For example, buy it secondhand or borrow it. Talking back to the content of the book, this is where I feel like the author's behavior is such a shame, because it's such a fascinating book, and I learned so much from it about North Korea's society and authorities. Because the author lived a privileged life, so he did not experience any of the difficulties that we normally see from North Korean defector stories. He did not experience famine and did not have the insecurity of living. And he showed us how the elite class have so many resources when other peoples are suffering from hunger. However, the author did the comparison between poor people and the higher class people in North Korea, and did the comparison of how different people's life can be. I read some comment about North Korean defector stories when people are saying that something that in their memoir or in the stories will never actually happen in North Korea because they didn't believe it's true or they didn't see it when they were also in North Korea. But I appreciate that the author actually showed us how different life would be if you are living in different classes in North Korea, and it's very hard for people to see cross classes. The writing of the book really shows you that the author have the quality of an award-winning poet. He seamlessly combined his memories of working and living in North Korea with his escaping stories. And he also tells you some of the political events that happened in North Korea, but in a very engaging and very interesting way that never overwhelmed you or bored you. The pace of the chapter when he was escaping is so intense that I cannot put the book down when I was reading it. So the more I talk about how good I feel like the book was when I was reading it, the more I feel like the whole thing is such a shame. Like, come on, people, why can't you just be decent? And now it's a couple months past, so I started to also questioning the honesty of the author a little bit, because he was doing such a sensitive job when he's in North Korea. So it's very hard for me, at least, to completely trust his account. But with that being said, I still believe that the majority of the content is true. I learned a lot, and also I'm still glad that I have read the book because of the different angle it provides us as readers. So as you can tell, I'm still debating with myself about this book, and I don't really know what to add as a summary. So I'll just tell you everything and let you be judge of the book. The second book I read for North Korea is the short story collection, The Accusation by Bandy. This is also our body read discussion for our Discord discussion group over at Discord, and this is also, I feel like, one of the most popular short story collections on BookTube, and it is written by an author who still lives in North Korea today, so that makes it important historically. The book has 7 short stories, covers the topics of the consequence of misbehave, famine, censorship, ideology, and the lack of freedom on both physical and mental terms. It shows us the cruelty of North Korean society and also how people are treated as tools for the dictatorship. 2 of the stories were very impressive to me. One dealt with the realization of reality and the fear coming afterward, the horror of losing all your status at once and living in the shadow ever since. I feel like the atmosphere of that story was captured spot on, and it was very immersive. The other story I liked a lot in the book is also about realization, but it's the realization of the break of an ideology and also the sudden loss of hope. Needless to say, the whole collection was very hopeless. The story was set in the late 80s, so maybe things have changed in recent years, but taking how much the country has been controlled and closed into account, I don't actually think it's so far away from the reality of today. Writing-wise, I think the book has its limitations, and some of the process seems very stubborn, but it's still very enjoyable overall. And same with everyone, I think it's a must-read if you're interested in reading about North Korea. The third book I want to talk about here is called Escape from Camp 14 by Blaine Harden. Blaine Harden is a writer and a journalist for multiple news medias, and in this book, he interviewed and wrote about the story of a person called Shin Dong-hyun, who is born and raised in a North Korean political camp, Camp 14, and managed to escape from it. Shin Dong-hyun was born to 2 prisoner parents at the Camp 14, whom he, because of his upbringing and the education he got from the camp, he had no emotional bond to. He saw his mother merely as a competitor for food. He does not know his brother and saw him as a stranger, and he rarely saw his father. So this is another book that provides us with a unique perspective, because Shin Dong-hyun has never known what a normal life was supposed to look like, not to mention think or dream about a better life for himself. And this has been pointed out by the author as a shortcoming of Shin Dong-hyun as a narrator of his own stories. Because he has never learned what is trust and what is love, he becomes a very unreliable narrator, and he tells different versions of the story, of the same story, at different times. But luckily, we have Blaine Harden, who pointed out the differences between different versions and also analyzes the different possibilities for each version. However, I personally don't think that the different version of Shin's story was intentionally lying. I think it actually shows his honest instinct of protecting himself and not trusting others. I think it also shows how a concentrated camp can do to obliterate humanity, and I also believe that some of the truths may lost between the communication and translation. Nonetheless, I feel like the bizarre big picture culture is what we should direct our attention to. And also the cruel environment and the dehumanized situation is what I learned from this book, and it's why I think it's worth reading. And then I want to talk about a documentary that I watched, which directed by a Russian director called Under the Sun. This is a documentary that follows a year in the life of a Pyongyang family, where the daughter of the family, Zinmei, was preparing for her day of joining the Children's Union on the Day of the Shining Star, and also the parents are work happily in factories. It looks like a happy life in an ordinary North Korean family until we learn that everything about this family was scripted by the North Korean authorities. Even the jobs that the parents have are not the actual job they have in real life. And other staging process, including what angle to shoot and how many times to shoot for certain scenes. And every footage needs to be approved by the North Korean Ministry of Culture. So what the director decided to do is to keep camera rolling between shots to capture the staging process and use the unapproved footage to make a behind-the-scenes expose. So as you can tell, compared to the approved story of the documentary was supposed to show us, the unapproved footage provide us with more information. I don't really have a lot of thoughts towards this documentary actually, because a lot of the staging process that we actually can imagine. I just feel like it's very brave for the documentary team to keep the camera rolling after each approved shots, but I can't help but wondering the safety of the little girl and her family, as well as the officers who was in charge of communicating for this entire documentary, the North Korean side, of course. I did hear that the little girl was fine and she had somehow a privileged status after the documentary because North Korea wanted to show her as the happiest little kid in the world. But that was a news dated back to a couple years ago, and I didn't find anything since. So in terms of the documentary, I think it's worth watching for obvious reasons. And in the end, I want to talk about a question that kept coming up from the book that I read a couple years ago, In Order to Live by Naomi Park, to the books that I read for this project. There seems always controversy around the credibility of the narrators. Some people stating that certain things will never happen in North Korea, some people accusing the narrators of lying because they have different versions of the same story, so on and so forth. In my opinion, there are definitely stories and details that are apart from the truth, because we human, we just can't possibly recall and remember all the things, and also our memories alter itself. And also we need to consider that a lot of the things happen to the narrators when they're really small, and also they are deeply traumatized by their experiences. So I found it very unfair to require them telling the same story with the exactly same detail over and over again. However, does the things that are different in their details matter? I would really argue that it doesn't really matter that much. Although it's very disappointing to know that things may have been different than how they presented to us, but the voice that we got to hear from the mysterious land is way more important in my mind. Literatures and other forms of art are the ways for us to know and explore the world and reality. However, it is upon to each one of us to make the call of what is valuable for us, what we absorb, and what we believe. Having a critical eye is indeed helpful to us in different situations, and in this particular cases, I think we need to remember that they may not be 100% accurate, but also appreciate that the voices of North Korean defectors exist. And this is all the things that I learned about North Korea during the reading for the From and About Asia reading project. I really enjoyed the experiences, and again, I do apologize that this video is coming so late, and the recap for other countries will coming soon in this channel. Please bear with my irregular uploading schedule for the past couple months or couple years. With that being said, I hope I'll able to upload regularly from now on, and do check out the details in the event page and also join the Discord for more in-depth discussion. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up if you feel like to. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Happy reading, stay healthy. I'll see you in my next Bookish video. Bye!